Photoshop WoW 6.6, the zip tie holding it all together. Today we're going to talk a little bit about album changes, how to tackle the changes once the book is designed and you get the change request from your client, how to go through that and make it as simple as possible. Proofing your albums, we're going to show you how to use a PDF and JPEG and create quick proofs for your album layouts to show your clients. Processing files for print, just a quick easy way of processing files for print. Album marketing, just a few ideas for online and in-studio marketing, and then album sales, keeping your album sales real simple, and a few things that we do here in our studio that have helped our album sales. Kind of a quick review. Week 1, selection logic, grouping your images into an album set. Week 2, custom album layouts, developing presets, pre-cropping, designing with the crop tool, and designing full custom album layouts. Week 3, custom backgrounds, adding color, texture, and graphics to your backgrounds to complete your designs. Week 4, template album layouts, taking your custom album designs, turning them into templates, taking your previously purchased or previously used templates and automating them, speeding up your process. Week 5, kind of the finishing touches, your black and white, your sepia tones, your dodging and burning, really fine-tuning your background with vignettes and some special effects that really just kind of tied everything together. Alright, so we're going to get started here. Okay, so we're going to dive right into the album change process. Okay, so I'm going to use the exact same process we used 2 weeks ago for the templates for my album changes. So my client comes in and she decides that she really wants to swap out this one image. Well, my add image action that I created a few weeks ago with our templates with the Smart Object technology, well, I just duplicated that exact same action and I called it replace image. It's really the exact same action. So I'm just going to use the add image because I want to add a new image there and press play. I need to navigate to my files here, so let's go to today's class and let's grab the image she wants. She just wanted to go from the one looking down to one looking at her. Pop that in there, and at this point I'd be ready to save it and move on. Just a real quick way, let's do that again with a new layout. Again, the client really wanted to go from an image looking away to an image looking at the camera a little bit more. So just drop this in. Nice thing is, yes, it's a color image, but since it's under that toned layer that we created last week, it's automatically turned into a sepia tone or a cream tone, and that album layout would be complete. Okay, so let's show you the album change that's not that easy, where we can't just automate with the action. So let's say the client comes in and says, I really love this album layout. I really want to add these 2 images to this album layout. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my measuring tool, or my ruler, and I'm just going to remind myself the width of this image here, approximately. So 3.47, so it's something that I shrunk into here. So at least I know I need to crop my images at least 3.5 inches wide so that they can fit right here. I'm going to double check and make sure this image is roughly the same. Yeah, they're the same. So what I'm going to do, I know I'm going to have to do a little free transforming, but I'm just going to crop them to a 3.5 wide, no height, and that way I can pull a crop real quick. And then I can just go in here and drop these 2 images on here. Alright, and so you can see a little bit of where these images, when they fall under that black and white layer, they're just being converted to black and white via that gradient map. What I am going to do is I'm going to turn that gradient map off for a minute, because what I need to do is line up these images what I'm actually going to do is go ahead and line up this center gap, and that way I can go ahead and free transform these to I'm going to zoom in really close, hold down shift. I've got both images selected. So I'm just going to free transform both of them to where their edges match exactly. Double check that my centers still line up, and they do. And then I just bump up my spacing to match, and those images have been added. And so at this point, what I do is grab all my images and all the contrast and everything that I've used on these first four. It looks like I've done a little bit of dodging and burning and added a little contrast with my snap action. Turn my guides back on, grab the whole group, and just bring it down in there. Now I have this entire grouping, and what I can do now, you can see my black and white is really all over the place. What I need to do, I'm just going to actually toss my old black and white away, make a new selection of all my images, including my new images, and just run a new black and white. And at this point, this album layout would be ready to save and would be complete. And that would be the process that I go through for my album changes, whether it's just to replace images or to go in and add a few images and maybe do a little bit of slight redesign. Okay, so once my album changes are complete, the client needs to see a proof. And there's a couple ways I can proof this. Now, I do this after my initial album design and then after changes to make sure that they approve it 100%. The two ways. I like to proof with PDFs, but you can also proof on your website with JPEGs. The first way I'm going to show you is with a PDF. Now in CS4 you create the PDF completely in Bridge. And the way you do that is you go to Window, Workspace, Output. And this is going to give you a PDF panel over here on the left. And so what I like to do is go ahead and go through and set this up. I want it to be a PDF, a custom PDF. You can kind of refresh your preview as you go through the process to see what the PDF is going to look like. I do a horizontal 8.5 by 11. My quality on the PDF is low. I don't need a high-res PDF going out to the client, and so I do a low-res PDF. I do check permission password and drop a password in there and disable printing so they can't print it out. Unless you want your client to be able to print it out, that's up to you. And then I do one column, one row. This is the default margins. I don't worry about that. I make sure in my layout that repeat one photo per page is the only thing checked. I don't want it to rotate for best fit. I don't want to use any sort of auto spacing. I do put an overlay on. I want it to be the file name. I don't need the extension. I use the default font. Arial is fine. I use a 16-point black. And you can see it right there. That way it puts the file name in there. I do like it to create a little slideshow for the client. So under playback, I check open in full screen mode in advance, and I set it for every 7 seconds. I change the transition to wipe, and I change the direction to left and the speed of slow. And this makes it look a little bit like a book kind of opening. And then you have your watermark section. I don't put a watermark over my album layouts because I want them to see the album layout. I don't want to put copyright Studio Benton, do not print. To me, that's just taken away from the album layout. And the reality is it's going to be low res. I've already disabled printing, and I don't want them to have to be looking around a giant watermark across the album layout. I'm not that stressed about that. And so at this point, I could select all my images or all my album layouts here and tap Save. And I'd want to navigate to my program here, and we put this in a web folder, and we title this Album Proof. And I'd save it. And Bridge is going to go through and create a PDF for me that I can email to the client, and they can open up in Acrobat, watch it, go through it on their own. It's on their computer. Clients tend to like that. Tap OK when it says it's successfully done. And I like to go into Adobe Reader and make sure that it works. So we go into the web file. There's our album proof PDF. You can see it's not too big. It's about 14 megs. I don't email these. I use You Send It, and that allows me to track whether or not they've downloaded it. So I'm not worried about keeping it under 10 megs exactly. I tell it yes to enter into full screen mode, and you can see even though it's low res, it's still plenty sharp for the screen. You can also see it goes ahead. It puts the page numbers 2 and 3, so I can ask my clients to reference each page specifically. So whenever they do make album changes, they're not just telling me, hey, that spread with my husband on it laughing and the guys holding each other, you know, in their arms right there. Can we switch that around? They can say, go to page 7 and can we change that image? Or go to page 9 and I want to swap out the image. I also give them a little instruction on, you know, how to manipulate the slideshow. You know, if they want to stop the slideshow, go faster, go back. You know, go back, you can just tap the arrow key. Left goes back, right goes forward. If you tap escape, it takes you out of the slideshow, but it keeps you in the PDF. And again, you can use your arrow keys. Right goes forward, left goes back, and you can just kind of PDF or tab through the PDF to view the album layouts, whether they want to watch it in slideshow mode or just kind of go back and forth and stare at a layout for a little while and see if they want to change anything up. And that way they have the ability to look at it. It's nice and full and rich. It's not on a website, and they can come back and give me their changes and keep that pretty simple. Okay, so that's how we would do that with a PDF. Okay, so now I'm going to get back into Ridge here. I'm going to switch my workspace back to my default workspace, which is the one we've been using all along. Kind of your default from Adobe. And if you like to put your album layouts on the web. So I have all my PSDs here. I'm simply going to select all of them. I'm going to go to Tools, Photoshop, Image Processor. I'm going to select where I want my files to go. I want them to go in the web folder. I want them to be a size 10 JPEG, and I want to resize them to 1024 by 1024. And then I'm going to put a current copyright on there. And so this will be size 10 JPEG, 1024 by 1024. I'm not going to run any actions on it. I'm not going to do anything. All this is going to do is size them down, flatten them, and create JPEGs for me because I have it set as a JPEG, not a PSD or a TIFF. And so I use these exact settings for every single album. I tap it to run. It's just going to kind of run through them really quick. Open each PSD. It's going to flatten it out, shrink it down to 1024 by 1024. Now it's not going to squish it. It's just taking the longest side down to 1024. And at that point, then it's going to save it to a JPEG folder, and then I can go and upload the files to the internet. And so let this kind of quickly run through here, and that's processed all the files out. And now I can go to my web folder, and there's a JPEG folder. And you can see here where I've got my JPEGs now, and I can take and upload these to a website. And I'm ready to upload them and proof them to the client. Okay, so the client has viewed them, they approved their album, and we're going to basically do the exact same process. So here's a portrait album. The client has approved it. I'm ready to go to print with this book, and I want to process all these into JPEGs really quickly so I can just upload them to Leather Craftsmen really fast. It's the exact same process. I go to Tools, Photoshop, Image Processor. I select where I want to put the files. Well, this is now going to go in the print folder. It's going to automatically make a little JPEG folder for me, so I don't have to worry about that. The only difference is I want a quality of 12 JPEG, and I don't want it to resize the file at all. So I just want a JPEG size 12, no resizing, no actions run, nothing. All it's going to do is process these for a flattened JPEG, and it's just going to go through again, just like the web proof. It's going to open each one, flatten it down, save it as a full res JPEG that's ready to upload to Leather Craftsman, and you'd be all finished with your process and ready to dive into ordering your book. Okay, so it just processed all that, and here's the JPEGs. These would be ready to go, ready to upload, and I know that it hasn't changed anything or affected anything because all it does is do an open, a flatten, and then a save to this JPEG folder and close. And that's all it takes to process your files to go to print. Okay, at this point your album design process would be complete, and you would be ready to move on to your next album project. Let's dive into a couple marketing and sales tips, tricks, and ideas that we use here in the studio. Now, when it comes to the marketing and the sales, it's definitely different for every region, every city. Everybody out there has a different market. And so what necessarily works here in San Antonio for me isn't guaranteed to work somewhere else. But this is just some ideas that you can take. It doesn't mean it's the best thing on the planet, but some stuff that we do that has worked well for us, and maybe you can take bits and pieces of some of this and make it work well for you. So with our marketing, we use sample albums. We put album layouts and album images on our website, our blog, and our Facebook. With our sample albums, we tend to show the biggest book or the bigger books that we sell. Our books come in, for our wedding albums, they come in 12 by 8 and 15 by 10, 40 side and 80 side. We like to show 15 by 10, 40 sided albums. That really turns that book into our most popular album. It's what the bride sees first, it's what the bride sees last in our initial consultation, and it's what gets the bride thinking that that's what she wants when she leaves here, because that's what we've showed the most of, is our 15 by 10 40-sided book. And it puts them right in the average collection and pricing that we're looking for when it comes to our album collection sales. On our website, blog, and even on our Facebook, we like to put a few wedding layouts. We never put the entire album unless it's somewhere on the website in the album category, where we'll put a full wedding album so brides can kind of go and view that before coming in. But for a blog or a Facebook, we like to just put a handful of the most dramatic images, and I actually like to wait until I get the book in. I like to photograph the outside of the book, maybe a couple angles of the book, and then complement it with some of the actual album layouts, and it really gives a nice complement of what the book really is going to feel like. Okay, so for album sales, show what you want to sell and sell what you want to make. And so, like I was saying, we want to sell the 40-sided 15 by 10, so we show the 40-sided 15 by 10. That's what you get handed first and last in the studio. And then again, I'm selling what I like to make. It's a book that I enjoy making. It's a size that I like. Personally, it fits what I shoot and what I do. And so I highly recommend finding a size and a shape that really fits what you do, and that way you have a book that you enjoy making, you enjoy putting your images in, because you're not trying to cram stuff in that doesn't really fit just because you picked a size because of its price. I didn't pick the size of my books because of how much they cost from Leather Craftsmen. I picked the size of my books by the way I shoot and design, and so I enjoy selling those books because I enjoy making the books. And that's actually what helps me get through my album process, because I enjoy it. Some sales tips. Make it really easy for your clients. Don't give too many options. With my album sales strategy here in the studio, I don't give them a million cover options. I don't give them a lot of page options when it comes to different design styles and all that. They have basically 3 different design styles to choose from, and they have all the Leather Craftsman cover materials to choose from, but I keep it very, very simple. I only show one real cover option, and that's the solid leather cover. Actually, in our studio, we don't show the stripe or the photo plate cover or the split tone. In my area, I've had a lot of success with the solid leather covered albums, and so we don't give a lot of options when it comes to all the things that you can do to a Leather Craftsman book. We've picked what we feel works is best in our area, and that's what we offer our clients. And that way they're not overwhelmed with too many options. And that's what's nice is Leather Craftsman offers so many different options that you can really pick what works for your area and get a really good selection, but not too much. Make your sizes scalable. If you're going to do square, 8, 8, 10, 10, 12, 12, 14, 14, you've got a variety of sizes that all fit with one design. Me, I've got 9 by 6, 12 by 8, 15 by 10, 18 by 12, and I can even go down to 7.5 by 5 and 6 by 4. So those are all my horizontal sizes that I can scale my designs with, and that way if I get a bride who orders her 15 by 10 book and mom comes in and says I want a duplicate copy of that book, I can sell them a 9 by 6. I don't have to do anything to it. All my pages scale exact, and in my sales strategy I try to keep everything within my weddings and my portraits all scalable. And then the final thing when it comes to making it easy for your clients, help them select the images. Don't just put the images on a website or give them a disc or give them a box of proofs and say, bring back the images that you'd like to see in the book. It'll take forever for the client to bring them back. Yes, we have the good clients who can get it done, but on average, it's just overwhelming. We shoot a lot of images nowadays. We tend to show 200-300 images. Some of us might show even more images, and we're asking for them to pick 30, 40, 50, maybe 80, sometimes 100 images. No matter what, you're still asking them to eliminate over half of the images, or sometimes 80 to 90% of the images that you've given them to put in their book, and that can become very overwhelming for our clients. And so I recommend help the client out. If you want them to have a very interactive process with picking, bring them into your studio, sit down with them for an hour, go through on a presentation screen and pick out their absolute favorites and talk about it with design in mind, and kind of help coach them so that you're not getting random selections that are really hard to fit in a book, and don't complement the design and everything that you've worked for in shooting those images to create the ultimate book when they go and pick images that just don't work together. And it also makes the process just so much easier and smoother on the client side by helping them select. We here at Studio Benton, we select 100% of the images for our clients in their wedding albums, so that they don't even have to worry about that process. And then they come back through, and like I said, I allow them to do one round of changes, that they come through and make a few little swaps, very similar to what we showed earlier with our album changes. They just swap out, hey, I want this one smiling. Can we add maybe this one or that one? And then the album is done. And so help them select to make it a little bit easier. And then when it comes to pricing, I recommend keep it really, really simple. One simple price for your books. And of course, each size can have a different price. But as an example, here's our portrait album, and we call it the Portrait, $650, 8-inch designer portrait album with 16 images, 5 additional images, $100. Now, when I say I keep it simple, I'm not going to tell them if they decide they want to go from top grain cowhide to Japanese book cloth that's an upgraded price. That if they want to add imprinting or a cover photo, that's an upgraded price. It's all included in our price. We keep it very simple so that they can come in, they can look at our sample books, which are decked out with everything that we like to show, and we want them to deck out their book. And we don't want them to go, well, that's what I saw, and you're going to charge me extra to add on a certain material or add on text to my cover or put a cover photo on my book. I want to roll it all into one price, keep it very simple for the client. They want to come in, let's say they've picked 30 images, that's an additional 14 images. That would be an additional $300 on top of it. That'd be a $950 book. It's very simple. They can do the math. They can figure it out pretty quick and easy. And of course, they would add that 31st image because they want every dollar they paid for. But that's okay. We'll put that in the book. I don't even tell them how many pages this book's going to be. And that's because I can design this to fit in whatever it really needs to fit in, and it's very simple. Now with our wedding albums, we do sell by the page instead of by the image, and it's still just as simple. We let them know that they have one price, and the wedding albums come in the collection, but again, the book that comes in the collection is a finished product. They can make it any size. They can, or not any size, excuse me. They can put any cover on it. They can put any amount of text they want on it. They can add a cover photo. We'll let them add anything they want. And if they've, even if they have seen somebody else who has a split tone or cover stripe, we'll add it in there. We have no problem doing that. It's all built into our pricing strategy. And so I recommend one simple price really has helped our album sales because people don't feel like they get one price and then come in and they have to keep adding to that price to get what they've seen. Well, that really kind of wraps this up, our 6-week series where we've kind of started from the very beginning, from our initial capture all the way through design.